All right, everybody, I think we are ready to roll. Just as a quick reminder, if you could please mute your phones, we will be handling our Q&A through our chat, through the chat function. But just to keep everyone sort of clean and being able to hear, if you could please just mute your phones. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Q&A session for our Phase 2 invitation-only proposal process for Helios Education Foundation's RFP focused on Florida student post-secondary success. Please, oh, I already said that. Please be sure to mute yourself, but I started with that. I'm Stacy Beyer. I am the Senior Vice President of Community Engagement, Strategic Partnerships, and Operations for Florida, and the facilitator for our session today. The Florida Student Post-Secondary Success RFP serves as a call to action and aligns with Helios's longstanding mission, strategic priorities, and demonstrates our commitment to creating equitable access for students across Florida. Let me just start off by saying congratulations for being selected to advance into this next stage of our RFP process. We are excited to share with you that we received an overwhelming 56 notice of interest submissions during phase 1. So it was an incredibly competitive process, and we got so much joy and excitement from reading every single one of these proposals, but are just thrilled to have you as a part of our invitation-only phase 2. Today's session is intended to field and address questions related to phase 2 of the RFP. This stage will provide your organizations with the opportunity to expand and provide greater clarity on the details of the proposed projects introduced through the NOI. To help maximize our time, we will spend a few minutes navigating and explaining our Smart Simple portal that will be used to capture your proposal information. And then we'll spend time at the end sort of addressing any general questions you may have about the RFP process. The Q&A will be facilitated through the chat function, but if you already know that you have some questions, feel free to go ahead and throw them in the chat now. And I want to remind everybody that this session is being recorded and will be made available on our RFP homepage later this week in case you want to go back and reference anything that you have seen. And a little bit later on in the presentation, we will provide an email address as well, so you can reach out if you have any particular questions. Now, I would like to introduce Julie Norwood, who is our internal guru of everything Smart Simple. She's the Vice President of Grants and Project Management, and she will provide an overview and explanation of our Smart Simple portal for your application.
Thanks, Stacy, and good afternoon, everyone. Like Stacy mentioned, I'm going to walk you through the proposal template in Smart Simple, which is our grants management system, and flag a few specifics that we're looking for in your RFP submissions along the way. By now, the primary contacts for phase 2 of the RFP process should have received an email that invited them to complete a full proposal in Smart Simple. The primary contacts also received a second email with a link to activate their user account if they are new to Smart Simple. So when the contacts log into Smart Simple, they can open the proposal template. This is what they'll see on their homepage, and they'll click on the icon that's circled as shown here. Please let us know, this is very important in the chat, if you didn't receive the emails or if you don't have or see this icon on your home screen so we can troubleshoot and resolve any issues ASAP. So when you open the proposal, you will see several things. You may see a high visibility note. That is the section that's blocked off in purple at the very top of the page. This note may contain a few follow-up questions related to your NOI that we would like you to answer in this proposal and where to detail your responses. Everyone will see a process timeline across the top of the page, which shows that you are now in the proposal draft stage, which is circled there. And then right below the timeline is a series of clickable tabs that allow you to progress through the different sections of the proposal. And we're going to start out with the general one that's highlighted in green. And a lot of the information for the general section, the content here, has been pre-populated by Helios, but please confirm it for accuracy and let us know if you need to make any changes. And then at the bottom of the page, you'll see that we have the Florida RFP at helios.org email if you have any questions or problems completing the proposal. So moving on to the second tab, this is the overview, and this is where you will provide your project start and end date. And just remember that your proposed grant cannot be more than 3 years in length. And then right below that is a project summary text box. And you can actually copy and paste the content directly from your project purpose in your NOI submission. And if you don't have your NOI handy, if you scroll to the very last tab on the right, you'll see a print preview tab. Click on that and a PDF of your NOI is available there. So if you need it, just go over there and pull it up. You'll also see that there are red asterisks throughout the proposal. Please remember that any section with a red asterisk is mandatory, and if you don't populate those sections, you will not be able to submit your proposal. Okay, so the next section are our impact metrics. This is where you will select the metrics that best track and demonstrate the impact of your proposed program. And please notice across the top that's highlighted in yellow that there's a link embedded in the directions header there, which will open a PDF of Helios's RFP impact metrics and a data dictionary that describes each metric. Your goal here is to limit your metric selection to the ones that demonstrate the outputs of your proposed program. And I always like to emphasize that quality greatly outweighs quantity in this section. So for example, metric 2.7, that particular one looks at the number of students who complete a FAFSA. If your proposal doesn't include direct one-on-one support to students to complete the FAFSA, but does other activities, don't select this metric and instead focus on the ones that are more relevant to your work. If your proposal is selected for funding, you should be able to collect data on these metrics that you choose throughout the lifetime of the grant. We understand that not every organization might have the capacity or tools in place to track this information, so you might need to build this request for data capacity as a milestone and activity in your implementation table and into your proposed budget. I also want to point out that your impact metrics that you select should also be aligned and consistent with some of the upcoming sections that we'll talk about. Specifically, the project purpose section. Your high-level goals documented in the project purpose section should connect to or reference each selected impact metric. And then when we get to the participant served table, if any impact metrics are selected, then the proposal must include proposed numbers of direct participants served in the participants table. And then lastly, in the implementation table, each selected impact metric should be clearly reflected in the implementation table with related milestones and activities. So on the next slide, I just included a few snapshots of our data dictionary. And you'll notice as you read through it that several definitions specify one-on-one supports. This criteria is important to Helios because we want to distinguish more specific activities from things that we might call as all calls or large-scale events, where it's hard to connect the activity to the related outputs. Going back to my FAFSA example, you may want to start your FAFSA campaign activities by inviting all seniors in your high school to an event to build awareness and emphasize the importance of completing a FAFSA. But Helios is really looking to fund those programs that go beyond awareness and mostly include one-on-one help for students or families to complete their individual FAFSAs. We also ask that you limit your projected participants served to those who receive targeted supports funded by the grant. If your proposal provides targeted one-on-one supports to successfully complete and submit a FAFSA for a subset of students within a community high school or district, then we would want you to provide completion numbers for that subset of students and not for the whole community high school or district. So for example, you might have 1,000 students in your senior class, but you're only working directly with 50 students on completing their FAFSA. We would be interested in you reporting on the 50 students that you're working directly with instead of the entire population of the class. So moving along, the next tab is the need and purpose section. So in the need for the project box, again, you can copy and paste the content from your need for this project from your NOI submission. But I do want to highlight that we would like this section to be reflective of the direct communities where you propose to work and the populations that you hope to serve. There may be interest in using state or national level data, but please provide detailed descriptions of what you are experiencing on the ground where you work if you can. Right below that, the project purpose text box provides you a space to describe what will be solved or changed as a result of this work. Please list project's high-level goals and activities that align to the impact metrics that you selected. You'll have the opportunity to provide greater detail on your goals activities in the next tab, which is the implementation plan. Now, throughout the proposal, we have a few pop-up tables, and the first one is here on this page. And you'll see the blue button on the bottom, sort of bottom left of your screen. When you click on that blue button, this project participants table will pop up. And please complete this and be sure that the participants served directly align to your impact metrics. Again, we don't want you to provide completion numbers for the whole community, high school, or district that you're working with. Just provide numbers for your subset of students. And then finally, at the bottom of the page, the geographic area allows you to select multiple counties in Florida, but remember that this work must be limited to Hillsborough, Pinellas, Orange, Osceola, Broward, or Miami-Dade. And then next we have the implementation plan, which is another page where we have our embedded pop-up table. So just click that blue button to open the implementation table pop-up, which you'll see here. And then I know I'm repeating this a lot, but just make sure that your implementation table is aligned to the following section: impact metrics. Each selected impact metric should be clearly reflected in the implementation table with related milestones and activities. And then project purpose. The high-level goals that you documented just before in the project purpose section should be listed and built out as milestones and activities here. We try to encourage people to date everything in the same format throughout the table. So you can say if you're doing work annually, quarterly, or by month, just please include the year as well. And then when possible, try to make your activities as quantifiable. So include the number of activities or sessions that you will have throughout the lifetime of the grant. You have the opportunity to include up to 12 milestones, but that's the most. I wouldn't encourage you to go up to 12. And you must include at least one sustainability and one evaluation milestone. So you really only have 10. The sustainability milestone should describe your plan for continuing the program after Helios funding ends. And then the evaluation milestone should describe your plan for measuring progress, making adjustments, and then overall success throughout the grant term. We know that this is a unique way to organize your plan instead of a straight narrative box. So please notice again that there's a link embedded in the directions header, highlighted in yellow, and there are several samples there for your review. All right, we're coming into the home stretch. Next, we have our partner section, and this section asks for details about your collaborative partners. If you have identified a partner or partners in your NOI that is essential to your ability to do the proposed project, you must include some evidence here that the partner is on board. You should be able to demonstrate to Helios that they are applying for something on behalf of a partner who is aware of the project and that they're fully on board. And if you're still building a relationship and you don't have full evidence of the partnership, you'll need to explain where you are in the process of getting that new partnership off the ground. In other words, receiving a grant from Helios should not be the first time the potential new partner hears about your project. We also don't want to be the sole catalyst for your new partner joining your program. For example, if this project is going to allow you to expand from the school district or area, we need evidence that this funding is not the only way that it happens, but that there's natural alignment. All right, the next section is for your budget. So we ask that your budget spreadsheet be in Excel, and it should represent revenue and expenses for the entire grant term, and make sure that it aligns with your proposal's start and end dates. We also have highlighted links in the directions to some sample budgets. And the requested expenses need to be directly connected to the implementation plan. We should be able to clearly understand why personnel is being requested or travel tied or any activities that you're going to do to activities in your implementation table. For your expenses, we also ask that you break them down annually. No need to do it by quarter or by month. Annually is fine. And make sure that you include your date ranges. We always ask that salaries be captured in 2 lines, one for wages and then benefits as a separate line item. We also allow for nonprofits or public entity partners to apply for up to 10% of the grant amount towards indirect expenses. Some examples of that are organizational accounting expenses, audit fees, fund development staff, expenses and events, your portion of rent, utilities, office supplies, and depreciation that can't be attributed to the proposed work. Also, if you're working in a partnership or collaboration with other nonprofits, we will allow you to do a cost allocation and split the indirect costs if multiple partners are collaborating. Lastly, I don't think we have a slide for this, but we have an attachments tab at the end there. And you can use the attachments tab to upload any documents that support your proposal's work. And then we were talking before about considering building your proposal in a Word document first, and then copying it into Smart Simple. One of the worst examples that I've experienced was a partner working on a proposal during a thunderstorm. Her power went out, her internet went out, and she lost all of the work that she had done for her proposal. So I recommend that people create a Word document with an autosave feature and then put it in Smart Simple towards the end. And then also make sure that you click the Save Draft button as often as you can to be sure you don't lose any of your work. And then, of course, rely heavily on the linked resources and sample documents. I feel like that was a whirlwind. So please let me know if you have any questions in the Q&A, and I'll turn the presentation back over to Stacy.
Thank you, Julie. We will now pause and take some questions. There have already been some added to the chat, so in just a second, I'll go through what we can see already, and just keep adding them, and we'll try to get to all of them during this webinar. So give me a hot second, and let me go back. The question had been asked about the word character count, just in case anybody else has that same question. And when you go into Smart Simple, it will tell you how many words per section you have to complete. A question was raised about who should we address our letters of support to, and you can just say Dear Helios or Dear Selection Committee. It doesn't really matter. But having the actual letters of support or examples of MOUs would be helpful in stating the case around the commitment of your collaborative partners. Do you have a sample proposal that we can view to ensure we're meeting each metric? Also, do you have a checklist we could reference? Julie, I've got to pass that first part back or this question to you. Do we have a sample proposal that we can view to ensure we're meeting each metric? And do we have a checklist?
We don't have a sample proposal, just because each one is so different from another. But I do think that the samples that we have embedded in each section are definitely representative of what we're looking for, the types of information and how we want it organized. And then there was a second part of the question.
There, a checklist
Oh, a
for.
checklist. Really, the checklist would be those asterisk sections. So if you make sure that you complete all of those sections that have a red star next to them, you'll be in good shape.
Yes, and I want to emphasize that in some of the sections where we have samples like the budget or the implementation table, it's been informed by successful proposals we've had in the past. So they're great examples to reference. And also, if you have questions along the way, you'll be able to email us at it's FloridaRFP@helios.org. And it's restated in a minute. Okay, the next question is around the budget. Do we need to break out indirect or can we just use the blanket 10% line item? And you can use the blanket 10% line item. But what we sometimes see is that people use the 10% blanket line item and then they ask for some of the same indirect costs up above as detailed budget items. So you just have to pick either detail them or just ask for the 10%. What is the earliest start date you should use? So I would say probably June 1st. That should be sufficient. How many grants will be awarded and how many groups made it to this place of the grant process? When is the full grant due? So we don't know the answer to the question. We're staying open to the quality of the proposals that we receive. So we don't have a target around how many grants will ultimately be awarded. So we're keeping ourselves open-minded to what's possible. And then how many groups made it to this phase of the grant process? There are 15 applicants in phase 2, and we started with 55 or 56. And the full grant is due on March 10th by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, Walter, for the affirmation. It's a lot of details for me to remember. If the partner is the district, can the letter come from the chief academic officer if that person has responsibility for this type of work? 1,000%. That would be fantastic. And can you talk more about natural alignment related to partners, please? Julie, is that a phrase you used in the collaborative partners section?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more of an organic relationship that would naturally happen as opposed to trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. We would want that relationship to already be established and to make sense for the work that you're doing, as opposed to like figuring it out after your proposal got funded, say.
Could you maybe be a little bit more specific? Maybe there's an example from the past.
Well, I could use an example where people might think that, so this is why we ask for strong documentation that the partnership exists on both sides, because we wouldn't want someone to assume that someone's on board and understand what the expectations are, but then once the program gets funded is, wondering like, oh my gosh, I'm not quite sure what I signed up for. Or the organization would come back to us and say, well, they're going to have to go back and think about it for a while before they can confirm with us that that's going to work. We're hoping to avoid any of those delays and have those relationships established and kind of like firmed up, shored up by the time that the proposal is submitted. Does that help?
Another example in that realm is oftentimes we're approached by organizations who want to partner with Helios and work with a particular college, university, or school district, but they're going they may try to, like, if we were to give them a grant, then they would go to that school district or partner and say, oh, we're ready to partner with you. Helios just gave us a grant. We actually want it to come in the reverse, which is we want to know that the valued partners for the implementation of whatever you're proposing are on board, and that it together you are approaching this opportunity as a collaborative partnership, and not that Helios, we would never want to do something to a school district or a college or a university without them being fully vetted on the front end. Let's see. The next question is Helios open to funding more than one grant in a county? Yes, we are, through this process or any of our processes. If you have any other questions, please throw them in the chat. I think it has slowed down a little bit. One thing I will say about that last question is, I will tell you that through this process, we saw a lot of, well, we had several examples where grants coming out of the same community were very similar. And so in our high visibility note, some of you probably have questions around that, or very, we sort of raised up opportunities that we saw could be, as at the very least, awareness of what it is that you might be doing, but even the potential for some collaboration. Can the budget and or goals be different than what was included in the initial request? They can, and Julie raised up the opportunity if you needed support. I think it was around, was it data or evaluation? What was it? Or both?
Data collection.
Data collection. But we have we're not looking for grants to grow substantially from what you originally submitted, but if data capacity is not something that you have on your staff right now, but you need it for this, to be able to meet some of the evaluation metrics of your grant, we wanted to raise up that we were, open to seeing that. Whoops, now the chat is going crazy. So give me a hot second and let me go back. And I would say, I'm sorry, I only addressed the budget, but the other second part of the question was, or goals be different than what was included in the initial request? I would say expanded, but not, I wouldn't veer radically from what you originally proposed, just because that's how you moved from phase 1 to phase 2. So we're not looking to evaluate a completely different proposal. The next question we received is, let me see. If you serve a small subset of students through programming, will our program metrics be used for scoring? Meaning, will we score low if our numbers served are lower? That's not really how we evaluate grants. I think I'm going to answer your question, but if I don't, come back to me. Whether you pick one metric or 2 or 5, the most important thing is that they are directly tied to what it is you are proposing to do. So don't pick that you're going to move outcomes on a particular metric if in fact none of your activities are sort of tied to that metric. And then when it comes to populate numbers of students served, we're really looking for the opportunity for quality service. And some people's proposed activities are meant for the masses, and some of them are much more targeted, let's say mentoring one-on-one. So we're really, trying to ground ourselves in our decision-making around evidence-based practices that we know move the needle for college enrollment and college attainment. And that will be sort of the North Star guiding us in our decision-making. Now, I will say, it's probably, when the numbers are lower and the ask is really high, there is a little bit of an evaluation sort of on the opportunity for sustaining the work after Helios's funding were to end. So just kind of keep that in mind. If the project is really expensive per student, it may be difficult to make that sustainability pitch. Okay, the next question we have is it possible that you will fund a project but at a decreased budget amount? I would say, I guess it's possible, but I don't think that's how we are approaching this. So, not having seen the details in your budget, for example, if someone were to ask for something that we don't fund or isn't justified in the actual proposal, sometimes, for example, we'll get requests for technology and technology isn't mentioned anywhere in the narrative of the grant. But let's say we're still really interested, we may have a conversation to say, if we cut this out, would you want to continue? But sort of maybe your question is grounded in, like, if we have an overall budget, would we try to fund more grants by cutting people's budgets to sort of hit the ceiling? And that's not kind of our approach. But there may be times where there are requests made that just don't either align with the project design that you've proposed, or maybe they're non-allowable expenses. And then we may come back and propose a smaller budget, but it's not really how we typically work. If the project in total works one-on-one with students, but Helios alone is not funding this one-on-one, can we still use the metric? Julie, I'm going to toss that back to you.
So that is, again, a maybe. I would say to put it in there and then share in your budget narrative or in the implementation table where it would kind of diverge from what Helios is funding versus another partner. Because I know that, you might have a situation where you're getting funding from several different sources that you're braiding together to do this work. So I would say include it. And then if it moves on to the funding stage and we need to modify or make adjustments, we would do it then.
You guys are asking some really great questions. I might have to cut off the Q&A early. No, I'm just kidding. No, these are fabulous. Thank you, because we're going to be building out our Q&A document after this, just to make sure that everyone can refer back. You can obviously watch this video afterwards, but just want to make sure we're giving everyone the same information. So the next question we got, Julie, another one for you. Can we indicate scaled numbers in either and or both the participation numbers and budget areas?
So I'm guessing an estimate. Is that what I'm interpreting with scaled numbers? Or like scaling up over time? I might need a little more details about scaling.
It says meaning increased numbers year over year.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So both in the budget and the participation numbers?
Definitely for the participation numbers. Stacy, I'll let you speak to the budget part, because I know that sometimes we like to see a decrease in funding over time, but maybe if we're, building up to a project, that's okay to increase the budget year over year as the project ramps up.
Yes, so thank you for that, Julie. So it typically is a preference of Helios that it's as an indication of sustainability that we do see sort of reduced numbers over time. I wouldn't set it up necessarily as a requirement, but again, in thinking about what does this project look like from a continuation once Helios is no longer a funder, ensuring that the dollar amount that you're in the final year is something that you believe you can either pick up, or maybe the type of change that has occurred is systems change so that the continued funding isn't needed, whatever that might look like for yourself. I think when we see budgets increase year over year, sometimes that makes it difficult to sustain over time once Helios is gone. The next question is how many partner letters are needed? And I would say that depends on your project. We have some initiatives where it's really, it's the partner or it's the organization working directly with students that they're already connected with. And in that instance, there may be no partner letters. We have some initiatives that are dependent on 2 or 3 collaborative partners to deliver essential components of a particular project. So in that instance, every partner that's required for implement or helping with the implementation of your project, I would say seeing a letter of support or an MOU for those. I think the greatest place where we would want to make sure we are seeing support is sometimes partners are going into other organizations, whether it be a school district or a college, knowing that that institution is aligned with and welcoming of the work that you are doing. That would be important for us to see through a letter of support or agreement. Oh, Julie, another question for you. Can we change the name of the project from the NOI? All other aspects would remain the same, but they just want to change the name. I think the answer is yes.
Yes, yes, you can edit your title of your proposal.
Can they do that in Smart Simple or is it already? Yeah. Okay. So once
Yeah,
they
that
open.
field is that field is
Okay, great.
editable.
Is a project evaluator to be included in this proposal? I'm not sure exactly the if a project evaluation needs to be included. How you get it done is up to you. We have some partners who have capacity. Maybe their evaluation methodology is really basic. We're not looking for necessarily a third party evaluation on these initiatives, but if you have staff capacity or if you have consultant capacity where that's possible, you can include that. But definitely, I think Julie mentioned in the milestone section of the implementation table that there's 2 milestones that must be included. One is around evaluation and one is around sustainability.
Oh, I love this next question that somebody is thinking about it.
You want to take that one, Julie?
Yeah, so I
Go for
know
it.
that this happens a lot, and it's something that we are definitely flexible with. So if you're tracking students and then we want and you want to know where they are that year after the grant ends, we can end the grant term, but keep the reporting open so we can collect that information and have it all tie together and not lose it because the actual grant term itself is ending.
So the next question is, for organizations that make it to this phase, is it more probable that they would get awarded provided they complete all the requested, I'm assuming this meant information, and this is actually still a very competitive process. So I don't know that I would say it is probable. We have 15 organizations who are continuing in phase 2, and we don't expect to fund a majority of organizations through the RFP. The next question is, at this next stage, will there be a completeness review or any request for more information before a decision is made if there are questions on our application? And I would say possibly. We're going to hold out the opportunity for reaching back out for further clarification. I think most of you heard, at least in the NOI process, that RFPs are not how Helios usually does grant making. So in some ways, this kind of separation is different for us, and we want to make sure that whomever is moving forward, that we have a great comfort in what they have, a great comfort and understanding of what it is that they have proposed. which I just to draw your attention one more time in the high visibility note at the top of your application, those are some clarifying questions that we had after reviewing your NOI. I will tell you guys did a fantastic job in that concept phase of really articulating what it is that you hope to accomplish and explaining in significant detail how it is you plan on going about that. But yes, this next stage is much more involved in the proposal process, so we may need to have a conversation or reach out via email for greater clarification. When will we be notified of those groups that are awarded the grants? So the answer to the first question is late spring. So I would say obviously before June 1st, we hope to let people know. And then will those not receiving the award be notified and feedback provided? So you will be notified. I don't think we have come to a decision. We did not do feedback through the NOI process, and we probably will not do feedback through this process, but we will keep that option on the table. Okay. I'm no longer being recorded by Karen, so that is not a question, just a statement. A couple other questions. How do we account for overhead expenses as a freestanding organization? I'm not sure I completely understand the question. Do you, Julie?
I'm wondering if they're talking about like they are requesting funding for operating expenses that they do all the time as opposed to a one-off program.
Okay.
And that
And
would
that would
still,
be covered
yeah,
through
still under
indirect?
the 10%.
Yes. If that answers, hopefully that answers your question, but we have a 10% of your grant request cap on indirect costs, so that should cover things like um, accounting, utilities, things, other expenses related to your program. And then are grants offered only as full funding or is partial funding granted as well? I would say it's possible that we would do a partial funding grant, but we are typically going in and reviewing proposals as they come in. There may be opportunities that we want to suggest adjust funding, but we wouldn't do it without consultation with the potential grantee. We are actually at the end of our questions before. We got one more. Circling back to the question and answer that this is still very competitive. Did you say that most will not be funded? Yes, I don't think we will fund the overwhelming majority of the grants in this process, but we don't have a cap on we don't have a goal kind of in mind. We're really going to base it um, off of the proposals that we receive. But if I were to be a betting person, I don't think that we will fund the overwhelming majority of the grants that are in this. It is a competitive process. And to confirm how many years is the grant funded, we will fund up to 3 years. So your budget should be for the 3 years. And I'm pretty sure people covered it that way in the NOI process. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you for appreciating our time and consideration. Excellent. Well, let me hand it back to, let me get on the same page, to Cherie, who is going to detail some additional resources available for you.
Thank you, Stacy. Good afternoon, everyone, again, and congratulations again for making it thus far. Before you jet off to begin working on the RFPs, I wanted to remind you that there are several resources available on our webpage to assist you in the RFP process. The RFP webpage may be accessed by scanning the QR code on your screen. These resources include several that will be pertinent throughout the process. The first is the Florida Student Post-Secondary Success RFP Overview. Most of you have seen this. It provides a written explanation of the purpose, goals, intent, and application information. The actual RFP FAQ document. This is a list of frequently asked questions, and it's updated periodically throughout the course of the RFP process. Questions from today will be uploaded and added over the next few days. You can listen to the recording, or you can always pop back to this document in the next few days because the new questions will be uploaded there. Additionally, a PDF of the actual questions is available in Smart Simple. The actual questions were attached to the Outlook appointment reminder, and you can upload the full RFP document there as well for all of the questions at one time. A glossary of terms. This document provides definitions and explanation on specific terms relative to the RFP. And of course, our recordings, a recording of today's session, the January 29th Q&A session, and the January 15th webinar are also included on the web page. I will now turn it over to my co-director, Walter Jennings, Director of Student Success Initiatives of Florida, to close out our session with a few reminders on the timeline and contact for the proposal. Walter?
Thank you very much, Cherie, and good afternoon, everyone. Just a reminder about our timeline relative to the RFP. Today represents our RFP Q&A session, and next, once again, on Monday, March the 10th, serves as the due date for our RFP submissions. All full proposals must be received by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, March the 10th. Any questions relative to the RFP process must be submitted no later than Wednesday, March the 5th by 5 p.m. And as Stacy previously mentioned, RFP award recipients will be notified in the late spring. If you have any questions or concerns, including technical questions about Smart Simple, please email FloridaRFP@helios.org. Now, as Julie mentioned, you should have already received instructions and links for access to the Smart Simple via email. Please notify us ASAP if you have not received this notification. Also, please note that Helios will not respond to emails regarding the specifics of an individual proposal or application. Again, as a reminder, we will only be responding to questions that will be submitted via the designated email address, FloridaRFP@helios.org. And one last reminder, all full proposals are due no later than 5 p.m. on Monday, March the 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This concludes our session. Hopefully this was informative for you all, and we look forward to reading and receiving your proposals. Thank you all so much again for attending. Have a great afternoon.